We started, funnily enough, with gin and tonics. Right? My roommate and I, we were also assholes, right? So we were like, um, I guess the sort of quintessential like hipster mentality, right? Of like, oh, if we're gonna get into this, we need to pick the thing that no one else likes, and we'll like do that. We'll force ourselves to like that, right? And that was gin,
I was
right?
gonna say, didn't you at one point have like a entire handle of gin with like a splash of tonic in the freezer?
Yo, well, right. So we went down this gin rabbit hole, right? Because everyone was like, oh, like let's like take whiskey shots or let's drink tequila, right? But no one was like, oh, give me the gin, right? So we were like, okay, gin is it. If no one likes gin, we're gonna like gin. So we bought some gin, and we thought it was really tough to consume, and
So good.
yeah, right. But then also like that hipster mentality, right? We're also super stubborn, right? So we were like, all right, we're gonna figure this out. So we started drinking a lot of gin and tonics, right? Gin and tonics have the added benefit in college of the tonic glows under black light, right? So you're like, it's an instant conversation piece in college, right? So you want to have
Right. So you
you
replace the lighting in all of your in your apartment with only
yeah
black lights.
yeah, and thankfully, where the fraternity that I was in when I was in undergrad had a big blacklight party every year, right? So it was just it was such a natural thing for us, and we were like, oh, this is great. And we started, it's interesting. You have your first sip of gin, and you're like, wow, that is really like aggressive and terrible, and it tastes like pine trees and whatnot. But then you have your second, you have some with tonic. There's like the sweetness and the bitterness, and all this stuff starts to come into focus, and all of a sudden, um, it's remarkably pleasant and frankly pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
And we made we made a lot of silly cocktails. We Yes, we made martinis, and we were told by the folks that I guess we looked up to at the time or whatnot. Martinis is like just the right proportion of gin to vermouth, right? But you don't want to use too much vermouth, and like you could actually use a really tiny bit, and it'll make it even better. And you want your martini to be like really cold. So we, not considering dilution or anything, we took like a shot of gin out of a bottle and we refilled it with vermouth, and we put it in
So
the
good.
freezer. And we put it in the freezer, right? So this is like straight, like essentially it's 80 proof frozen liquor, right?
Yeah.
And it'd be like, oh, it's like martini night. So we're gonna pour and fill like a big old martini glass with this frozen liquor, and it's so cold, right? You can't really like you can taste it. It's harsh, but you can't really appreciate any of the flavors, except
You
for the
re-
fact that you'd have like one of them and you'd be trashed, right? Because it's essentially like you're pouring like 6 or 7 ounces of just 80 proof spirit into a glass and like being all fancy with your martini, right? Because we had no idea what we were doing. So we did that to start.